Welcome to Under the Lens on this beautiful Sunday morning. Today, we're once again joined by Derrik Klassen at QB Class. And as he described it, we are looking at Twitter's love child, Cal quarterback Jared Goff. So, Derrik, let's talk about Goff and how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Just got done with graduation like 2 days ago. Yeah, we graduated Friday. Um, but I'm pretty excited to look at Goff because I think of all the guys we've looked at already, he's definitely the most interesting and kind of hard to get a true feel for, in my opinion. So it's going to be fun to put him under the lens.
And for you, what makes him the most interesting and just more difficult to get a feel for?
It's like the two big things with him is that, um, well, one, his pocket presence is really up and down, kind of like Derek Carr's was at Fresno State. Like you would see instances where a rusher comes off the edge or something, and he completely flips out, and maybe tries to bail out of the pocket and just does something stupid, or takes a sack he didn't need to. But on the other hand, you have these moments where he steps up in a muddy pocket and makes a throw like 30 yards down the field, and it's kind of tough to figure out. Well, which one is his true ability and which one is he just kind of getting fluky with. And I don't think it's fair to assume that the positive is necessarily his true ability. That's probably more likely because if you can do it, um, there's a good chance that that's just who you are, and that when you falter, that's not necessarily who you are, and you're just having a bad moment. But still, I think we see the negative side with it a little too much for me to completely say he has a good pocket presence. And then the really big problem I have with him is his arm. Like throwing over the middle of the field, he looks okay for the most part. But his throwing to the boundary, like he's really bad. And it's not just like he's physically not throwing the boundary well. Like with comebacks, he's kind of late sometimes, or outs, he can't really hit all that well. And then it's not even that he can't physically hit them; it's that like he knows that he can't hit them, or he doesn't think he can. So like he'll look at a 5 yard out that like for a lot of good quarterbacks, it's open. Like you should be able to hit that, and then he looks at it and he's like, "Nah, I don't think I can do that," and he looks elsewhere, which
We're having quick technical, she'll get that ironed out.
cool. What?
Oh no, you went out for a quick second.
Oh, where did I leave off?
Well, you're just talking about how sometimes he doesn't take throws he knows about his lack of arm strength.
Yeah, it just looks like he knows he can't hit these throws. Like he'll look at a 5 yard out that most good quarterbacks can hit, and he looks at it and he's like, "Nah, I don't think I can do that," and he turns away. And what I was saying was, some people are going to look at it and go, "Well, he's being smart with the ball. He knows his limits, yada yada yada." But on the other hand, knowing your limits and being physically incapable and mentally incapable as a passer are two completely different things. Like if you look at a throw and you think you physically can't make a throw that good quarterbacks can make, that's kind of this upcoming season. Something I want to really see from him is not being hesitant to throw some of these passes.
Well, one point with that we talked about in Josh Dobbs' podcast is that there's throws that Dobbs probably can't make. He's willing to gun for him and try it.
Mm-hmm. Because at the very least, I mean, and it's not that like Dobbs is like an ignorant passer. Like it's not like he's physically incapable and he's just trying to make all these throws that he just can't. It's it shows that because of his arm, he probably has a less chance of making, but he's confident in it, and his ball placement is pretty good for the most part. So he's getting the most out of what he can possibly make for that throw. Goff, on the other hand, just turns it down a lot of times. Like he looks at, like I was saying, like 5 yard outs, and he just looks at it and he's like, "Nah, I don't think I can do that," and he tries to go elsewhere. And I'm not saying Goff is like, I'm not saying Goff is stupid. And again, people are going to look at that and be like, "Well, he's making his progressions." Well, maybe he is, but if it's like a 3rd and 4 and you have a 5 yard out, throw it, because if you hit that, it's a first down. Like there's no reason to not throw it unless you're physically incapable or he's completely blanketed. And oftentimes, the guy's not completely blanketed, and Goff should be able to make the throw. And he just looks at it and doesn't think he can. And that's especially true if he's throwing from the far hash.
And one other concern that came up on Twitter last night, obviously it's been said that he's gained weight, but he played at 180 pounds last year, which is just goodness.
Yeah, no, I mean, the weird thing about his weight is like he's gonna need the weight and the muscle to make his arm better, but at the same time, you can't expect a guy to gain like 20, 30 pounds and immediately play the same way. Like he's his body is vastly different, and he's going to have to adjust to that. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how he can adjust to all this attitude, and if it, maybe it slows down his drops, or I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if it helps or improves him. A lot of people are already banking on that it's going to help him. I'm not ready to do that because, like I said, you're playing at an entirely different weight, and it's not a position like defensive end or anything where it's like all you're doing is using your weight, but at the same time, you're still doing a lot of movement at the quarterback position. So for him to add so much weight and to be expected to be
Well, yeah, I mean, and that was kind of the concern reading last night. Yeah, and people were saying last time because he gained 30 pounds. I mean, I get 210's a good weight, but that's a dramatic increase in weight, and to automatically assume, oh, he's going to look just as normal and they'll be fine and they'll be better. I'm not willing to make that just assumption.
Exactly. Neither am I. It's just a scary thing because, like I said, he's going to be a vastly different player from a physical standpoint. So it's going to be interesting to see how he can adjust.
Definitely. So today we're going to look at Goff this past year versus Oregon. So, I mean, obviously with all these games we're watching them at half speed. So we'll get right to it. All right. And here we go. Jared Goff versus Oregon.
Can you rewind that a little bit? It looked like he kind of had a dump off guy who just tried to make a big play somewhere. Yeah, I mean, he has a guy right in front of him. I don't know if he's scared of that linebacker, which he shouldn't be because his tight end or whoever that was able to get around him and was moving the opposite way of the linebacker. So I don't think fearing the linebacker should have been an issue. Oh, he's going to do that angle. I mean, it looks like things break down and he's not entirely aware of where all of his receivers are going to be. So he just goes to, who he was going to go to originally, which I guess at least gives him a little more security when he's making the throw because he already knows where that receiver should be. But at the same time, it would have been nice to see him make that dump off throw. Ooh, that was a really impressive throw. See, like I was saying, his arm looks fine over the middle for the most part. It's just, I mean, like there, he drills that throw over the middle just under the safety, which was pretty impressive. He knows like 20, 30 yards down the field.
Yeah, I think we're on technical issues. So Derek, yeah, we'll get that ironed out. But continue to watch Goff. I mean, what? Oh, I'm gonna go back and. That throw. Wow, man. All right, let's see if we can get Derek back on real quickly and we wait for that. And just real quickly as we wait for Derek to get on. I mean, on Lens, more coming this week. Officer watching Goff today. If you want to be a part of Under the Lens, be sure to check. Just hit me up on Twitter at MattJ on NFL, MattJ_on NFL. Always looking to have more guests on. You can name the prospect you want to break down. We will break down that prospect. We've done a bunch of quarterbacks so far. Did cornerback, safety, Jalen Ramsey a few nights ago with Ian Wharton at NFL Film Studies. So be sure to check that out. I've been doing some edge rushers with Charles at MC Draft 2, so be sure to check on it. But if you want to be part of this, we need to do offensive line, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. So if you want to be part of it, just let me know, and hopefully we'll get Derek back on in a moment. All right, we're good. Derek's back.
Sorry about that. My internet went out. That's what I get for living in the Central Valley of California.
No problem. All right, so we'll get it back up and running. Yeah.
I remember leaving off on the 51-second mark.
Yeah. So let's go back.
Perfect. And what I think I was trying to say before I went out was that it's going to be interesting to see what people think of Cal's system because, some people really harped on Mariota for having an easy system and, a lot of easy reads and the drops weren't really legit. And I think to kind of a little bit lesser extent, Cal's offense is a lot of the same way. So it's going to be interesting to see if people say some of those things about Goff. That's a really impressive throw to be able to. The most impressive part is that he's able to reset his feet, with a defender right in his face, moving in the opposite direction. And then he has enough arm strength over the middle to let that ball fly in just over the safety. He had a guy open. Let me still make the throw, so I can't really say anything. Here, can you rewind that a little bit? Because I can't tell if he didn't throw.
Could he have gotten more yards after the catch if he throws?
With the throw he made, or here, wait, can you rewind the play like from the beginning? Okay, look at the middle receiver on the trips.
Yeah.
It looks like that receiver's open, but I think Goff turns away from it because he has defenders in his face and he doesn't know how to make that throw work. So he turns outside and still makes what should have been caught. So I can't really say it was really a negative play, but it would have been nice to see Goff figure it out and hit the curl because the guy had a lot of room ahead of him and around him, as opposed to throwing it to a guy who was running straight into a defender. I mean, he doesn't make the throw, but that's kind of the flash of poise I was talking about, where he loses the ball, fumbles, but he still is able to hitch up back into the pocket and at least try to make a throw down the field. Can you rewind that a little bit? I want to make sure. It didn't look like he had room to hitch up anywhere. Yeah, no, he didn't. Like that play was kind of just screwed because of the offensive line. So, I mean, pressure just came so quick and from everywhere. I'm not really gonna harp on him for doing anything wrong. The only thing I mean, it would have even been hard to try to get outside of the tight end box and even try to throw that away. It really just would have been hard for him to do anything there. I mean, he kind of had room up and to his right, but it looks like the defensive tackle still would have been able to make a play on that. So, again, I mean, that's a sack, but it's not like Goff could really have done anything. Typically, I don't like guys throwing behind the sticks, or let alone behind the line of scrimmage on a third and like kind of long like that. But if you're confident in your guy's ability to make a play, I guess it's not really a bad thing. And it looked like he got the first down there. So again, it's not like that was a bad play. It's just going to be interesting to see if he continues to develop a mentality like that where he wants to play more conservative and let guys make plays, or if he wants to make the plays on his own. That was a nice throw to fit it in just under the defender. Yeah, that was a really good throw.
What, again, another drop? Good.
There you see him go through multiple reads. It looks like he held on to that ball. Yeah, that was impressive. I mean, you'd like to see him to where the receiver is able to stay on his feet, but to still go from reading one side of the field to the other and make that throw is pretty impressive. And that was a really good throw, splitting the defenders. And a lot of with a throw like that is making sure you don't throw it too early or too late. Because if you throw it too early, or the safety's going to be able to make a jump on it. And if you throw it too late, either the safety or that corner is going to have enough time to run over and make a play on it. So you really have to throw that as soon as he makes his break, and that's exactly what Goff did. See, it's kind of with throws like that I wish Goff was able to put a little bit more on the ball and be a little bit more aggressive with it from a strength standpoint. And I know his base was kind of compromised, but there's a lot of good quarterbacks that throw well from a compromised base. And, if you can't, you're probably going to have issues in the NFL because there's so much chaos on any given down that throwing without your base is going to be a pretty common thing.
And in the past, we've talked a lot about arm strength velocity. How do you feel about Goff's anticipation?
His anticipation is pretty good for the most part, and I think that's kind of what helps hide his middling arm because, he's pretty good at understanding when the ball has to be thrown. So it's rarely looking like a ball's not getting there in time or anything. Whereas, in most cases when a ball can't get there, people are like, oh, well, he doesn't have a good enough arm. Well, with Goff, it's just that he's so good typically at anticipating these throws that it kind of negates his arm strength at this level. See, in that kind of throw, I would like to see him put a little more on it so his receiver doesn't have to come back behind the end zone line and like put that a little bit more in the corner of the end zone. At the same time, that's still a pretty good throw to be able to move and then still complete the throw. And I'm pretty sure they still scored anyway, but I would have liked to have seen that placed a little bit better. And I think another thing is that Goff is a lot more confident throwing against zones than he is against man coverage. Like I was saying with these outs, like with these outs against zone coverage, he looks like he's completely fine. He's confident enough throwing against them, but you put man coverage and you have a guy trailing his guy, he's a little bit less confident that he's going to be able to make the throw, and that's kind of a little bit concerning. And I think that was something to a lesser extent that we saw with Marcus Mariota. On the other hand, Mariota had a better arm, so I wasn't quite as concerned with it. If I remember correct, the ball doesn't look like that was really all that catchable anyway. Like it looks like it was kind of behind the receiver, so it would have been a really tough catch to make anyway. I think part of that is if you notice, he kind of resets before making the throw, and it looks a little, see, he hitches up and resets, and it looks a little weird. Like he got his feet a little too wide, which is why I think the throw kind of came out weird, and you can see his back leg lift a little bit earlier than it typically does with him. And I think part of that's just going to be, muscle memory and understanding how your body works and how it needs to move to make things work, which I think just by playing, he should be able to figure out. And it's really not much of an issue that I've seen with him, so I don't worry about that. His drops are pretty precise for the most part, which is one thing I do like about him. He's firing off into that, typically it's only 3 steps, but, he's firing off. And the way Cal does it is it looks like he's taking 1 big step and then 2 choppier steps. But after the 2 choppier steps, he's either planting for a throw or he's hitching back up, which is pretty impressive. And see, it's with kind of comebacks like this with a guy right on him. The defender didn't get directly to the ball, but the defender was still able to gain enough ground to where he's able to disrupt the throw or disrupt the catch point, which is oftentimes enough to make the ball incomplete like it was on that play. Really nothing you can say about a Hail Mary other than at least he got the ball off. I mean, at the very, that's really all you can say about these Hail Mary plays is just get the ball off. And if you don't get the ball off, then you're probably just overthinking it too much because there's really not much else you can do on a Hail Mary. Okay, can you rewind this one? Because it looks like, again, he doesn't get his feet under him right, and he doesn't have enough arm to fit this throw in because of that. It looks like... No, I mean, his base should have looked fine. It did look like he took his front step was a little wide. But yeah, he's not able to put enough on that throw to get it in between the defenders, which is really my big concern with him is that, some of these contested throws he's not going to be able to make because he just can't put enough on it.
And where does that concern come? I mean, where does that originate for you? Why isn't he able to put enough on it?
with that, I mean, part of it is that he just doesn't have a lot of weight that he's throwing from. Like, I mean, I'm sure he weighed a little bit more than 180 by the end of the season, but I mean, there's no way he ever weighed more than 200 during this season. So that's kind of part of why his arm isn't that good. Um, he definitely just looks like his frame as a whole just isn't that big. So that's part of the problem. And then again, the way he was overstriding on those two throws that we noted with his arm. That's going to be an issue if he can't, get his feet under him correctly. He's not going to be able to generate enough power, and for him, that's huge because he really has shown that he can't throw without a base. So if he's not able to set his base correctly and derive power from that back leg, from a stable base, then he's going to kind of be screwed. Because in the NFL, these windows are tighter, and he's not going to be able to fit some of the throws that he's, getting iffy on already in college. See, considering that was a free rusher, it's tough to say there was too much to do other than that maybe he should have ID'd him off the snap and forced that left tackle to pick him up. On the other hand, it's kind of part of the left tackle's responsibility to pick that up. But from a physical standpoint, unless you're a really, really good athlete, you're not going to get away from that sack. And I don't think it should be a negative to say that he's not an incredible athlete, because so few guys are. I like watching these third and long plays because it's interesting to see how they really handle it. Pressure in his face. See, again, from a compromised base. This time it's not him overstriding. It's that he has a guy in front of his face and he's not able to step into the throw. And because of that, he can't put nearly enough on this ball to make it work.
I'll see if I can pause it at the.
See, he had a guy right in front of his face, and he's not able to get that front leg out like he wants to. He kind of has to move it back and then kind of twist his body to make the throw. And for him, that's just not going to work. And that ball fell well short. The receiver really had no shot at that. Look how slow that ball is getting there on that out from the far hash. Like, that's concerning. The receiver has to turn and completely stop, and yeah, it's complete, but that's really only because the defender's playing so off. And even though he's playing so off, he's still able to come back and restrict yards after the catch entirely just because of how slow the ball got there.
Well, the receiver's just standing. It's same.
Yeah, like he's sitting there waiting for the ball. That's not how, those quick routes, especially that one, should work. Like, he should be able to be hit in stride and turn up the sideline on a route like that, and he wasn't able to. And especially when they're playing off covers. Like, if he's playing off, then your receiver should have more, room in theory to work and, to find yards up the field. But because the throw got there so late, he didn't get any yards after the catch.
Well, with, like we've said, but with the off coverage, that should be wide receiver turns, balls there, go.
Exactly. That's how that route should be, not, receivers turning and stopping entirely. And you have some instances where, on an out route like that, where he turns and he kind of makes like this little spin move to catch the ball. And I think that's okay. But for the receiver there to like completely have to stop for the ball, it is a little weird and is probably going to cause more problems when, NFL defenses are playing a little tighter.
Well, that's one thing that's coming back to us. Sure, if in college it's not an issue, but once you get to the NFL, window's going to be tighter. You can't throw if you have to have the same base every time. Defenses aren't going to give you that. They're not going to.
Exactly. It's not about, necessarily how Goff looks right now. It's looking at what he's doing and kind of saying, well, is that going to work in the NFL? And I think more so than any of these other top quarterbacks like Hackenberg or Keel or, well, I mean, like out of those three, Hackenberg, Keel, and Goff, I have way more reserves with how well he's going to be able to translate to the NFL because of his arm. And I really do hope that next season he's able to put a little more arm strength on because he adds weight. Because I think he's really, outside of that, he's a good quarterback and he has a lot to work with. It's just that he's not physically capable in too many instances for me to be comfortable with him. But I think if he can show that he can put a little more on the ball and complete some more of these contested throws, then I'm going to be a lot more comfortable with him as a passer and probably like him a lot more than I do.
Yeah, because you mentioned he doesn't have that arm strength right now, but he has the anticipation that makes up for it. So if you can combine the two,
exactly, then he would look really, really good. And I'm really hoping that happens because I think he could be a damn good quarterback if that does happen. But right now, I don't think we're looking at that guy. Like I think a lot of the people that are really high on him are kind of already looking at him as if he has the arm. And kind of assuming that he's going to have it or whatever. And I think that's just a little premature because I think I really want to see it happen before I say anything. And there again, it's another out and the ball's behind the receiver. He has to jump. See, if he throws this ball out, there's no way the defender's getting to that.
no.
If he's able to throw this more to the boundary, that defender's not getting to it. But he throws it behind, receiver has to turn and jump for it, and that defender's able to knock it out.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's 3rd and 1. Like he doesn't even have to throw this towards a deeper 5-yard out. He can have his guy work back to the ball a little bit and make this only a 3-yard route. But he doesn't, and he still throws it behind the guy, and really costs his team not being able to complete that throw.
Well, man, that's the thing. It's not an interception, but that's a turnover. You're giving the ball back to the other team.
Exactly. And I think, when you look at a throw like that, I think with throws like that where he just doesn't get enough throwing outside, it's like he knows. I think he's throwing the ball at the right time and to the right spot. It's just that he doesn't have enough arm on it that it's not getting there when, he thinks it should be there. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's not engaging his arm right. And I think that's part of the problem. I think
Going back to that throw we watched a few plays ago, but because he had everything set to hit the wide receiver, but the wide receiver had hit because the velocity wasn't there to get. It's just.
Exactly. Even at the college level, he probably could have just thrown that and lobbed it a little bit more to the outside, and his receiver probably had a better chance at that. That probably isn't going to work in the NFL, so I guess it doesn't matter. But at the least, it would have showed kind of some, figured outness, which is kind of a good thing. See it here. Can we rewind that throw again? Throwing from the far hash like he is, I know this is going to be a hard route to hit. But you have to be able to throw that to the sideline and let your guy work up and get to the sticks. Like that route is designed for that guy to catch it, around where the numbers are, or just outside the numbers, and then just turn upfield and get to the sticks, and barely get that first down. But that's what should be happening. Goff's not, he's not able to hit that throw. Luckily, he turns around and is able to hit this quick slant. But this should have been a first down, before even having to throw this route.
Well, the thing that bothers me is we're seeing a lot of these problems on 3rd downs.
Exactly, and which is huge because kind of like you said, like it's a turnover. Whether it's not going to show up on the stat sheet as a fumble or an interception, but not completing a throw on 3rd down is a turnover, and that's huge. I like the way Cal's system works in the sense that I think Goff is a very methodical passer in the sense that he's not going to be one that wants to sit here and wait in the pocket for a play to develop. He wants to just hit the throw. That was kind of lucky that the defender's just not able to get his head around because that's really a bad throw. He kind of just lobbed it up into the area and the receiver completely turns around and finds. I mean, like that could have been a touchdown. Oh, he doesn't even catch it. Never mind. Yeah, that was a very poor throw because again, it's his arm. He wasn't able to get nearly enough on that throw. Throwing far side, far hash to the other boundary.
And that was a little bit behind.
And there I'm not sure that was really an arm strength issue as opposed to just general ball placement. But at the very least, I mean, that's not even a far throw. It was like maybe 7 yards down the field. He needs to just dump that ball off and at least give his guy a shot at getting this first down. And he doesn't even do that because he throws it behind.
I mean, he gets pressure and then just.
And I think it's fair to assume that part of it is that, it's a big down and, his head's probably spinning and he just, it was hard for him to be comfortable and even make an easy throw like that, which, that's now what, 4, third or fourth down plays that he's just made either a bad throw or a bad decision on. So that's concerning because that's, in theory, 4 turnovers. Because, I mean, on third down, if you don't complete that, typically you're going to punt. And then if you screw it up on fourth down, of course, you don't have the ball anymore. So, I mean, they're not turnovers that are turning up on the stat sheet as an interception, but he's still giving up the ball more than, he should.
Yeah. And I really think we really should think about referring to these more as turnovers in key situations.
I think that's totally fair. I mean, people are going to say, well, it's a, it's a team effort to, maybe get the first down and yada, yada, yada. But at the same time, can't an interception be the same way? Like if, if a receiver's not getting open completely like he should, but, quarterback still makes the throw and then it's an interception, you can't really say that's entirely the quarterback's fault. So I think it's totally fair to say that, if a guy's not completing, big passes on third and fourth downs, that you can count it as a turnover. And I think that would actually be something, interesting to chart to see, who's really giving up all these turnovers.
I mean, you mentioned some will say that's a team thing, and I agree. Team wins aren't a player stat, but at the same time, these are throws on third, fourth down. NFL quarterbacks are going to make. They're not going to turn the ball over and give it back, and he's not doing that.
And a lot of these, in a lot of it with him, I don't really think any of these ones that I've seen on this game are like mental errors. It's physical errors. Like he's not able to make the throw. And that there is kind of the same way. Well, can we rewind that one again? I mean, it looks like that was just an ill-advised throw, period, because the underneath defender probably had a good shot at getting there anyway. But I want to see this one again for sure. That really is that's just an ill-advised throw because I think no matter what he does on that throw, even if he has plenty of arm, that underneath defender is there, and he's going to be able to make a play on that somehow. I just want to
see if there's anything else on that play he could have done. There may not have.
Oh, true. I hadn't even thought of that. It doesn't really look like it because that middle route's covered. Those two like seam and hash routes were kind of covered. So
I know it's jumping. Really does he have the athleticism to just pick up a few yards, make it a shorter fourth down?
Yeah, I don't think he's a statue in the pocket. I think he's had a couple of short runs in this game, so I think maybe it would have been a good idea to just take off and maybe get 4 or 5 yards and make this fourth down an easier throw. Luckily, he's able to make that throw. But yeah, he probably could have just taken off and gotten some yards, but I'm not going to fault him for trying to make a throw. See here, let's rewind this one again because it looks like, again, it's another out, and he forces his receiver to turn around and try to make a play on it, and it causes some issues. And it looks like, I think that was EFO. Yeah, that was EFO. Is able to come and make a play on it. That's not really, throwing an out with, getting the right angle on it. That's just considering he really had he was kind of facing the quarterback for the entire throw. That's really just, you need to have the arm to be able to stick him in the numbers really fast. And Goff wasn't able to do that without letting the defender get there to some extent. On the other hand, wait, is that a touchdown? Oh, wow. It was. I mean, can we rewind it again? The one that just led to this, like before the 2-point.
No, that was incomplete.
Oh, it wasn't. Okay, I see. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, you see it fall off. Yeah, I mean, he puts it. That looks like he put it too far outside because he was really scared of EFO being there. And then, he has the defender in his face. It's hard for him to make a throw. And then, I think if he throws this really any closer to EFO, like if he throws this another foot inside, I think EFO's, maybe talented enough to have definitely got a hand on that ball instead of just, kind of disrupting the receiver trying to catch it. So no matter what, I just don't think Goff had the arm to make that throw, which is more than concerning because if you can't make, some of these throws that should be easy, why should defenses respect you to do it? And if defenses aren't respecting you to make these throws that should be easy, it's going to be a lot easier for them, and they're going to have a lot more confidence in, defending you down the field.
Yeah, and that ends the game. But I think one thing we came to, we mentioned that they won't show up in the stat book, but the turnovers, 3rd and 4th down, can't get the job done. Yes, it's a team thing, but throws that there was a window there, NFL window, maybe college window, that you need to make, and he didn't get it, and that really is a turnover. You're giving Oregon the ball, and considering how bad Cal's defense was in that game, those are points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's huge. There were, off the top of my head, I remember at least 3 outs that he just failed to hit, kind of like the one we just saw. And then there, were 3 or 4 3rd or 4th down situations that he failed, whether it was not throwing it out correctly or there was the one where he wasn't able to set his base throwing that deep out, that 10-yard out that he wasn't able to hit, that threw well short. And I think that's just going to be the big thing with Goff is like, he looks so good elsewhere. So, I kind of get why people are liking him a lot, because, he's a smart guy. He moves in the pocket well often. His pocket presence isn't terrible. He has some instances where he kind of falters, but he does look good often. He's generally accurate. His anticipation is good. There's a lot of things to like with him. It's just that, throwing to the boundary and, throwing some of these tighter windows, there's really, really a lot of room to sit there and pause and wonder if he's going to be able to make some of these throws in the NFL because, he already can't at the college level. So if he can't at the college level, there's no way he's doing it in the NFL. So it's going to be really interesting to see next year if he can start making some of these throws.
So, we've talked about people make the assumption that, he's added weight, he'll be fine, and the arm strength velocity will be there. So let's look at 2 different areas. Let's say we don't see that. Where would you feel comfortable drafting him? What role do you see him? Do you think he can be an NFL starting quarterback? Do you think he's going to be a good backup? Where do you see him if the arm strength velocity remains the same?
If his arm and, the way he processes the game with his arm, like, sometimes turning down out routes and stuff, I think if that all stays the same, like at best, he's an Alex Smith type starter because you're not going to see him be able to make the big throws and the big plays, both physically and just in his confidence. He's just not going to be able to make those kind of plays. So I think at best, you're looking at an Alex Smith, and I don't think I want to spend anything more than like a 4th, 5th round pick on an Alex Smith because People are going to say, oh, well, Alex Smith is a starter and he's productive. That's true, and Alex Smith probably won't lose you games, but he's never going to win you games, and I'm not going to invest highly in a quarterback that's not going to win me games.
Yeah, I mean, and it was, as you're talking about, it was like the number one thing that came to mind was Alex Smith, and just he started for many years, but every year people are ragging him. He can't make deep throws. He doesn't have the arm strength, and I mean, you're going to be above quarterback purgatory, but it's not a great place to be either way.
No, exactly. I mean, I would still contest that it even still is quarterback purgatory because, like, other than probably the top maybe 16 quarterbacks, everyone else. I'm not saying everyone outside the top 16 quarterbacks is a bad quarterback, but outside of that, it's really just going to be hard for you to win big with those kind of quarterbacks that are outside the top 16 because it's, they're just not. I mean, I know that wins aren't a singular stat, but it's going to be hard for a guy that's not a top 16 quarterback to go up against an Andrew Luck or a Cam Newton or a Matt Ryan. It's a lot easier, when all those guys are kind of in the same pool and are able to fight against each other. But once you start kind of dropping out of that talent range, it's really hard to overcome and win that kind of game.
Yeah, and so all right, so we talked Alex Smith probably where he is at right now. I mean, if he entered the NFL today and the arm strength and the didn't greatly improve, if we do see improvements in
Why is it happening? Oh, the other way around. Not that out. Anyway, well, I know Matt was just about to ask if what I would think Goff looks like if Goff were if he improved his arm strength. And I think if we see Goff at least improve to like a maybe Teddy Bridgewater type arm, where like it's not great, but at the least he's able to hit every throw, and he's able to hit them with confidence. I think if we can see that, like a Teddy Bridgewater level arm, then Goff is gonna be really good. Like, I mean, he's probably a first round. I would think he's a first round prospect if he can fix his arm and fix the confidence he has in his arm and can start making some of these other throws, especially like on third and fourth downs. So it's kind of a big range with Goff, and a lot of it is depending on how well he's going to be able to make his arm look. Because if he can't fix it, I don't think he's even a day two quarterback. If he does fix it, he's probably a first round guy. I think realistically, we're looking at a guy that is probably not going to be a better prospect than like Derek Carr, because I think he's a lot like Derek Carr. Their systems are shotgun spread systems that were designed for kind of easy yards. Fresno State's was a little more so than Cal's is, but both played with bad offensive lines that kind of made them have some pocket presence issues. Both are very smart players. Carr is a little more athletic, but it's not like Goff is a bad athlete. Both were a little bit slight in college. Definitely Goff more so. I don't think Carr was really an issue. It was just that it would have been nice to see him put on weight. It's just that with Goff, him and Carr are so similar, but at the same time, Goff doesn't have Carr's redeeming quality in that massive arm. And that I think is going to be, again, the huge issue with Goff is, what is he going to be able to do with that arm? So, man, I don't want to assume that he's going to get better. So for now, I'm just going to say that, he's QB3 behind Hackenberg and Huel. I mean, well behind those two. And I think, he's at best, he's someone that, one of those luxury teams that are pick 26 and up or want to take a backup quarterback in the late third round. Like, I think that's his ceiling for now. I know Twitter likes him a lot more than that because I don't think they have the arm issues that I have with him. But I think until he fixes his arm, that's about where I see him.
And apologies for my technical issues went out. But, I mean, you mentioned some of the teams later could take a chance on him. I mean, New Orleans, they took Grayson. I guess they feel confident with him. I mean, maybe look at a team like San Diego. Rivers is getting up there in age. Their backups right now, Kellen Clemens, Brad Sorensen. Maybe that's a fit going forward. We'll see what happens.
I mean, yeah, it's going to be interesting because I really hope that he's not one of those guys where, people were like, oh, well, he was so good last year, and now he's not good this year, because the hype train kind of falls off. And people assume it's like the player getting worse. That's not what it is. I mean, I made this mistake with David Fales because I really like David Fales going into the 14 draft is what it was. And, I ended up dropping him down to the second round, which ended up still being way too damn high. But, people were like, well, you dropped him. Did he get a lot worse? And a lot of people, even not talking to me, were like, oh, Fales got a lot worse. He didn't get worse. We corrected to where he should have been. And I think, I hope that's what is going to happen with Goff because I don't want people to think he just suddenly became a worse player if people start not liking him as much because that's not the case. That's not likely to be the case. It's just, I think he's going to be one of those cases where we really hype someone up a lot preseason because we see some things we like, and then we don't want to look at, some of the things that we don't like, and we don't harp on them as much as we should. And I think like the biggest example of that in my just few years of scouting was Taj Boyd. Like, Taj Boyd blew up after that Clemson LSU bowl game, and like this is one of the few things on about the draft that I can say I called. I was like, people are just hyping because he had one good bowl game. Like, you watch the rest of his games and he's not that good, and it's not even that he played all that well against LSU. It's just that they threw a lot and he was able to find guys, down the field for big plays. And, for Goff, luckily it wasn't one game. It's kind of been this progressive thing, but I think he's definitely getting overhyped and people aren't wanting to, look at the arm being an issue, and I'm just going to kind of hope it won't be an issue.
Well, I think what it comes down to is it's not a player having bad. It's further evaluation. You just get more film. You understand the player more, pick up tendencies, areas where they struggle. And that's the thing where I hope under the lens, we watch one game today, but in the coming weeks, we're going to watch 26 in the August, September, October, when 2016 games are up for him. We're going to watch those. We're going to see if the arm strength improved. If some of the areas we talked about have gotten worse or better, probably not worse, but just further evaluation, understanding the player more. So that's the grand goal.
Exactly. I mean, I think especially with Goff, I would say Goff, and depending on if Cardale Jones even is the starter, I think Goff and Jones are going to be the two most interesting to look at next year, just to see how they develop. With Goff, it's going to be physically. With Jones, it's going to be, are they going to open up the playbook for him and ask him to do a little bit more? And I know we haven't even looked at Jones initially, but, we'll touch on those things when we get there.
Definitely. I'm going forward with them lens. Obviously, quarterback's been a focus in the coming weeks with Ian Wharton. We're going to look at Paxton Lynch, which at first I thought it was a law firm or insurance company. Turns out it's an actual quarterback for University of Memphis. And, of course, as we talked about on Twitter, we're going to have to look at Andy Dalton Jr., Derek.
Yes, we have to. I think I tweeted this out 2 days ago or something, but if Connor Cook had red hair, this would be the best comparison I've ever made. I'm pretty confident in that. Like, it's just I don't know. All of a sudden, I was watching him just like a week or two ago, and there was something Cook did, and then I had just watched Dalton, and I was like, these are the same player. Like, they're the same exact guy.
Man, I've said before, that's gonna be
an interesting episode for sure.
Yes, it will. Derek, want to thank you. I mean, just for this entire series, for doing it all. The quarterbacks, obviously, you're going to be a big part of looking at linebackers also. So, at QB Class, much appreciated.
Yeah, I'm excited, to go forward and get to these guys like Cook and Jones and Boykin and just whoever. I'm excited to keep railing on this.
Everyone, I want to thank you for watching. Be sure to spread the word. Send it to your mother, your father, send it to your friends, uncles, your dog, your fish, everyone. Spread the word. Unblends, trying to grow. Help us out. Everyone, want to thank you for watching.